Welcome to episode 15 of the Confounded Chronicles. So in today's video, I basically got that threading issue I was having last week with the pen. I got that all sorted out, so I'll go over that. And we got some parts made for the CNC, well not parts, we got a fixture plate made for the mill to mill parts for the big concrete lathe, so we'll go over that as well. So here you can see we have the fixture plate milled out. I will put some video in now of the process of making it. So the first thing I'm going to do is apply a little bit of oil to the bed and to the bottom of the fixture plate, just so I'm not going to have any rusting issues. I didn't know if I'd have this bolted down for a long time, and if I did, I wanted to make sure that it was all protected. So I put it back down, bolted it in place, and we're going to go through and peck all the pilot locations for the drilling operation. This is kind of still the first time I've been running the mill as a drill through steel, and especially for steel, so I'm just taking it easy. This is just a small peck. This part I wasn't really concerned about. I just had the rapids turned down at the start to make sure I wouldn't have a disastrous crash, but yeah, it went off without a hitch. The next step, the drilling operation, I kind of took it a little easy off the start, and just because I haven't drilled a lot of steel on this mill at this point. I also went through here and added a little bit of oil to every single little peck. In the end, it probably wasn't needed because steel machine's quite well dry, and the whole cycle here I was just messing around with what feed rate works best. Like I said, I generated my feed rates with GWizard, which is awesome because it gives me a great starting point. And then I just experimented with, if a little WD-40 blast would help, if air blast would help, just what would work best. My main problem here was I was pecking down to 1/8 of an inch, and then basically doing a full retrack after 1/4 of an inch. I should have pecked a lot smaller, and it would have killed all the bird nesting I had there, because bird nesting is dangerous, and it was throwing parts everywhere, or not parts, but throwing chips everywhere, which is fine because it's all shrouded in plastic, but not the safest thing to be doing. So once all the drilling was finished, I had basically a pretty nice, smooth, flat plate. The next part was going through and tapping everything. I didn't want to tap everything by hand, so what I did is I basically just put the mill in low range, which gives it gobs of torque, and I just ran the spindle slowly and used the quill to feed it into the start, and then the tap would take over and pull down, and I would just stop the machine before it hit the bottom, reverse the direction, and then bring it back up. And what I'm doing is I'm turning it by hand, just the last few turns, just the bottom and tap out. I didn't want to run it right to the end because you're putting a lot of strain on the motor, and I didn't want to snap a tap in a hole because a lot of work has gone on this plate already. I've machined all the surfaces and all the sides off camera, so yeah, I didn't want to ruin it at this point, and breaking a tap off in a hole can kind of be an annoyance. I'm also drilling about 90% of the way through the plate here. 85% of the way through the plate, so that's why it's sitting directly on the mill table with no risk of damaging the mill table. And that's what we have, finished fixture plate that I am super happy with. So then to put it back on the mill, I just take this whole block, put it in place, and then just reference it to the one side. And this way, lefty-righty doesn't matter because I'll touch off when I get to it. It'll probably sit somewhat about there because the mill can only mill up to about here. And then my fourth axis will sit here. And then the new, this thing is basically the support for the fourth axis. It used to sit right on the table, so I'm gonna have to remake this, but basically then it'll just bolt right onto the fixture plate, and life will be simple. So when I was building that fixture plate, I made it in a hole pattern that would be compatible with the mod vices that NYC CNC sells. It's something I'm probably gonna purchase in the future. I just don't think making something like that's worth my time, and they did a really good job of it, and I like the process, or I like the product. So that's something I'll probably buy in the future, but I wanted to make sure my fixture plate was compatible with that, and it is, so that'll work great. The only aspect of that build that took a little bit of time, as you can see when I surfaced the top and the bottom of it, I did it with a 3/8 end mill and then a 1/4 inch end mill. I would have liked to have done it with a fly cutter. I don't have a fly cutter, or I thought I had a fly cutter. I have this. This is the little fly cutter I made for my tag, one of the first things I ever made on my tag, with a milling attachment actually. And I just assumed, well, if I don't have one, what I'll do is I'll just take this. This is the stock tag spindle before I went to the 5C system, and I'll put this in an R8 collet, and then I'll put this on the end of the spindle nose as it used to be, and I'll put a cutting tool in there, and boom, I got a fly cutter. The one problem is this is 1 inch. I don't have an R8 1-inch collet because I don't think they make an R8 1-inch collet, just a little bit over the bore size. Looking at it now, I wonder if this is a standard size that I could have used. I didn't even think about that. Let's see. Okay, so that's a 17mm bore. I could probably get a 17mm R8 collet for this, and that might actually make it work. It's a lot of stick out, but I might explore that in the future. Good to know. This is basically one of the last turn bodies that I made after I dialed in that threading. It turns out this thing, it was functioning almost exactly as designed. I just needed to be able to tighten this a little bit more than I can with the knurling and with this diameter. So what I might make is make this knob a little bit bigger so I can apply more force, but what I did for the meantime is basically just take a piece, some pliers and just snugged it up to compress this die a little tighter so that when it goes over the stainless piece, it doesn't expand and I get my threads bang on the first time. So now I cut my threads to nominal size. I think these are 7/16, I think. Let me look at the drawing. Yeah, these are 7/16 threads. So basically I cut I bore the bar to 7/16 of an inch, and then I cut them under nominal by about 5 thou, which works pretty well for hand tapping. And then when I take my little go gauge here and run it over the threads, well, they're gritty because they're not cleaned yet, but there's no play, and everything is free moving, and I don't have to run it over like 6 or 7 times. So that is perfect. Also, something I figured out with this lathe, every time I was using it in the past, I would basically take the tailstock off and I'd use the carriage here, and then when I was done using the carriage, I'd take the carriage right off and then put the tailstock back on. That's okay, it's built to do that. It's just a lot of wasted movement. So what I tried doing for the last few bodies that I was machining is I didn't take this off and I just left this on, and basically now I'm just not quite used to this headstock yet, but I can move the carriage to a position where there's really no interference, and lets me leave everything on the lathe, which means less wear and tear of taking this carriage on and off, because if this carriage comes off at an angle, which it sometimes does, it just makes it more difficult to put back on, because you can skew the little brass bar inside there, and if you skew the brass bar slightly and then there gets a little chip under there and you go to put it back on, now that chip makes the brass tighter against the rail, and this whole carriage assembly has to be taken off. You have to take the brass off, you have to clean the little chip back out of it, put it back in, make sure it's all clean, put it back on. So that greatly simplifies the process, and now this can stay on the machine. And what I can do, which I've been planning to do for a long time, is put little bed wipers on here. Probably little leather ones that'll help hold the oil. It'll bring the oil around to the bottom of the dovetails there to keep everything well lubricated and to keep all the chips and junk from getting under the carriage. It really hasn't been an issue in the last however long I've used this machine, but why not make it better if I can? Oh, another thing I also did that I didn't film is I took my whole bed off. I took this whole lathe apart actually last week or earlier in this week, and I put it on my granite surface plate, and I basically just checked the whole surface of the bed to make sure that I wasn't getting any weird wear spots or whatnot. And then I put a fine piece of sandpaper on this granite surface plate, which I was a little hesitant to do, and ran this whole lathe bed over it. The whole bed fits on top of my granite surface plate, which is awesome. So I can lap it all in level. It's hardened steel, so I couldn't cut much off of it, and it was showing that it was sitting pretty much exactly level. I mean, I'd have to put some layout dye and make sure that I don't have any high spots or anything like that, but basically from what I could tell, just the feel of putting it on and this kind of stiction or suction that you get, it seems like everything is pretty square. So for like a 10-year-old lathe that I've used heavily, I'm very happy that it's still in such great shape. So that's a quick update of everything I've been working on. Hopefully I'll be able to put that fixture plate to good use. I've ran the indicator over it once I had it all bolted down and made sure everything was in spec and aligned, and it turned out to be amazingly aligned, which it should be because I did it in one operation. So that's going to be something that's going to be a joy to use in the future and much easier to hold stock down for. The pens are progressing nicely. I don't think I'm going to have 10 for the end of this month. That was kind of the goal. 5 is kind of looking more realistic. I still have to order that new stainless, but I might be ordering that this coming week so that I can work on machining that, which the fixture plate will also help for that as well, because now I can put a bigger piece on, machine more parts, and hold them more securely. And hopefully next week we'll be working on grips because I want to do the whole patina process with the grips and the blackening process and all kinds of neat stuff. So that'll either be next week, or maybe there'll be more interesting stuff going on with the lathe, because like I said, I got some harebrained ideas for this guy going on. I don't know, whatever's interesting that I think you people will enjoy. So anyways, I say anyways so many times in a video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.